You know, we live in a world that never stops talking to us, telling us who we should be, what we should fear, and why we'll never be enough. And if you're anything like me, you've felt that weight too. The endless swirl of thoughts, the pressure to be perfect, the quiet fear that maybe you're not moving fast enough or doing quite enough. But tonight, I want to ask you to do something different. I want you to give yourself permission, just for a few moments, to set that noise aside. To truly listen, not just with your ears, but with the part of you that still dares to hope, still believes there's more, and still knows deep down that clarity can change everything. Because what if I told you that real success doesn't come from doing more, trying harder, or thinking faster, but from thinking clearer? What if the very thing standing between who you are and who you could become is the clutter in your own mind? Tonight isn't just about motivation. It's about transformation. If you stay with me, if you really open your heart to this message, you'll walk away with something far more powerful than inspiration. You'll walk away with a clearer mind, a stronger vision, and the quiet, unstoppable confidence to create the success you truly deserved. Absolutely. Here's an expanded version of Key Point 1, written as if delivered in a seamless, flowing conversational style, in the voice you requested, around the theme, silence the inner noise to unlock true focus. I want to start by asking you something simple, yet so many of us rarely stop to ask. When was the last time you really listened? Not to the world around you, but to the quiet place inside you. When was the last time you sat still enough to hear your own true thoughts, away from everyone else's expectations, judgments, and fears? Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the journey toward success doesn't begin outside of us. It doesn't start with the perfect strategy, the right opportunity, or someone else's approval. It starts inside, right in the deepest part of our minds, where our true focus either takes root or gets drowned out by noise. And what is that noise? It's the relentless chatter that tells us we're not ready yet, that we're too young or too old, too inexperienced or too late. It's the voice that whispers that someone else is already doing it better, so why bother? It's the echo of past failures and disappointments that sneak into our present moments and poison them with doubt. We don't always notice it because it becomes part of our background music. It becomes so normal that we stop questioning it. But the truth is, this inner noise quietly shapes our choices, our habits, and our courage to act. It keeps us stuck in cycles of procrastination, overthinking, and fear-driven decisions. I've seen people with incredible talent and big dreams who spend years stuck in this noise, so overwhelmed by what-ifs and worst-case scenarios that they never get to discover what could really happen if they showed up fully. And sometimes it's not dramatic negativity. Sometimes it's just distraction. A mind that jumps from task to task, from thought to thought, never settling, never finishing, always restless. Think about how many times you've had a powerful idea at night, something that lit you up inside, something you felt could change your life, and by morning it was gone. Not because it wasn't good, but because the morning came with noise, messages, emails, obligations, other people's priorities that flooded your mind and drowned out that quiet inspiration. And that's why silencing the inner noise isn't just a nice idea, it's a necessity if you truly want to succeed. Because clarity doesn't just appear when you're lucky. It's something you must actively protect and create. So how do we begin? First, by recognizing that the mind will reflect whatever we allow into it. If we spend every moment absorbing other people's opinions, news that fuels fear, and voices that make us feel small, then naturally, our thoughts will echo those very same messages. But when we consciously create space for silence, even a few minutes each morning, we open a door for clarity to enter. Silence isn't emptiness. It's space for what truly matters to rise to the surface. In that quiet, you'll start to hear your own wisdom again. The part of you that still remembers what you love, what you stand for, and what you deeply desire. And here's something powerful. The noise inside often comes from trying to control what we can't control. We worry about outcomes, about other people's reactions, about mistakes we might make. But the truth is, clarity isn't about predicting the future. It's about seeing what's true right now. When you're grounded in the present, the mind naturally becomes clearer because it's no longer scattered across 1,000 imagined scenarios. It takes discipline to keep bringing yourself back from the noise to the present moment. But each time you do, it becomes easier. And slowly, you begin to notice the difference. Your thoughts become less reactive and more intentional. Decisions stop feeling like desperate guesses and start to feel like steady, confident choices. Some people believe that a clear mind is an empty mind, but it's not. A clear mind is a mind that knows where to place its attention, and just as importantly, where not to place it. It's the discipline to say, this thought doesn't serve me right now. This worry isn't helping me act. This fear isn't telling me the truth. And to gently let it go. And yes, sometimes, even the strongest among us get caught in the noise again. We all do. The goal isn't to achieve perfect stillness forever. It's to notice when the noise is rising and choose, again and again, to return to clarity. The world will always offer you new noise, criticism, comparison, unexpected setbacks. But if you build the habit of clearing your mind each day, through reflection, stillness, or simply deep, conscious breathing, you'll become someone who can walk into chaos and remain calm inside. And that calm is powerful. It gives you the space to see possibilities others miss. It gives you the courage to speak your truth when others are silent. It allows you to act deliberately rather than react desperately. Success built from a noisy mind is fragile. It depends on external validation, on constant hustle, on never pausing long enough to question if this is even the right path. But success built from a clear mind is different. It's rooted. It's authentic. It grows from your deepest values and your true strengths rather than borrowed ideas or momentary trends. In moments of doubt, clarity will remind you why you started. In moments of fear, it will reveal what matters most. And in moments of opportunity, it will help you see which risks are worth taking and which are distractions dressed as possibilities. So, the invitation isn't just to think positive, but to clear the mind so you can see clearly. Because when you see clearly, you no longer act from panic or pressure. You act from purpose. And over time, you'll find something beautiful happens. The noise doesn't disappear completely, but it loses its power over you. What once felt like a roaring storm becomes a faint background hum, easy to notice, easy to set aside. And in that space, real focus is born. The kind of focus that isn't forced or exhausting, but natural and sustainable. The kind of focus that allows you to finish what you start, to show up fully, and to keep moving forward even when it's hard. A clear mind becomes your greatest competitive advantage, not because you know everything, but because you're deeply connected to what truly matters to you. And that authenticity can't be copied, can't be faked, and can't be shaken by temporary setbacks. So as we move forward, remember this. The first step to real success isn't to do more or to have more. It's to clear your mind. Silence the noise, and discover what's already waiting inside you. The calm, steady vision that's been there all along, ready to guide you forward. Because the truth is, clarity isn't something outside you. It's within you, and it always has been. Let's begin. Here's a deeply expanded, seamlessly flowing 8,000-word style segment. For key point 2, replace cluttered thoughts with intentional beliefs. Written as if delivered in an authentic, conversational, confident voice, maintaining alignment with the previous point and the overall theme. It continues naturally from the idea of clearing the mind and moves into consciously choosing empowering beliefs, without mentioning Ivanka Trump's name and with a strong closing for impact. Now that we've opened the door to silence and cleared away the noise that's been echoing in our minds, we're left with something powerful yet delicate. A moment of stillness, a space that feels almost empty at first. And in that space, we face an important choice. What do we allow back in? Because the mind is never meant to remain truly empty. Nature itself teaches us this. A field left bare doesn't stay bare for long. It's either cultivated with intention or it becomes overgrown with weeds. In that same way, once we've learned to quiet the chaos, the next step is even more transformative. Consciously choosing what we plant in that newly cleared mental space. Replacing thoughts that undermine us with beliefs that lift us. This isn't about pretending bad things don't happen or denying our struggles. It's about refusing to let them define the whole story we tell ourselves about who we are and what we're capable of. Think about the quiet moments when the mind is finally still. What do you hear in those moments? Are the first thoughts that rush back in filled with doubt, with fear, with old narratives telling you why you can't or shouldn't? Or do they whisper reminders of your strength, your resilience, your purpose? Most of us discover that the mind's default settings lean heavily toward the negative, because over the years we've rehearsed those thoughts the most. It's almost like an old playlist we didn't realize was still on repeat. And this is where the real power lies. Understanding that every single belief we hold is not permanent. It's practiced. It was shaped by repetition, by what we heard, what we chose to accept, what we told ourselves day after day. Which means we can replace it, reshape it, and rehearse something better. We can choose to become the careful editors of our own mental narrative. Imagine, for a moment, your mind is a house you've lived in your whole life. Some rooms are welcoming and beautiful, filled with light and warmth. Others have been neglected over the years, cluttered with old boxes labeled with guilt, shame, regret, and a not good enough. You wouldn't keep living among those boxes forever if you realized you could clear them out and redecorate those rooms with reminders of your real worth and your real potential. That's exactly what we do when we replace old, cluttered thoughts with intentional beliefs. But to do this requires awareness. It requires us to catch those old thoughts when they surface, those quiet criticisms, those familiar phrases like, "I always mess up," or "nothing ever works out for me." Instead of letting them pass unchallenged, we pause, examine them, and ask, "Is this true?" And even if a part of it feels true, does repeating this thought serve me or sabotage me? When we challenge these thoughts, we often find they're rooted not in facts, but in fear. Fears inherited from past failures, from other people's opinions, or from moments long behind us that still echo in our present. And the moment we see that, we gain the power to choose differently. Choosing differently doesn't mean telling ourselves empty affirmations we don't believe. It means finding statements that feel true enough to hold on to, even if they feel new or unfamiliar. Instead of the "I always fail," we might start with, "I've faced challenges before and I'm still standing." Instead of "I'm not good enough," we might choose, "I'm learning and growing every day, and that matters." These beliefs aren't about denying reality. They're about focusing on the parts of reality that fuel progress instead of paralysis. Repetition matters here, because the mind learns through practice. It's not enough to say these new beliefs once and hope they'll stick. We must return to them daily, just as we might tend a newly planted garden, watering them with action, protecting them from doubt, and patiently giving them time to take root. And yes, there will be days when the old weeds of doubt grow back stronger, days when fear feels louder than confidence. On those days, it helps to remember that strength isn't proven by never falling back into old patterns. It's proven by how quickly and gently we bring ourselves back to the new ones. Sometimes, our beliefs need evidence to grow. That's why small wins matter so much. Each time you act bravely, each time you keep a promise to yourself, each time you speak your truth, you're collecting proof that the new beliefs are worth believing. Over time, those small moments accumulate into something unshakable. And while this process is deeply personal, it's not meant to be done entirely alone. Surrounding ourselves with people who see our potential, who speak to our strengths, and who remind us of our values helps reinforce those new beliefs. We all have moments when our vision blurs, and in those moments, the right people can gently remind us of the truth we've chosen to build our lives around. But let's be honest, there will also be people who resist this change. People who liked us better when we played small, when we doubted ourselves, when we stayed safely in the roles they were comfortable with, and that's okay. Changing your inner beliefs sometimes changes your outer relationships. But the relationships that truly matter are the ones that survive and even strengthen when you step into your authentic power. Replacing cluttered thoughts isn't just about thinking better to feel better. It's about becoming better because thought and action are intertwined. The mind you cultivate shapes the choices you make, and those choices create the life you live. When you start believing you're capable, you'll attempt what once felt impossible. When you start believing your voice matters, you'll speak up when you might have stayed silent. And slowly, the gap between the person you hope to be and the person you show up as begins to close. This isn't an overnight transformation. Some of those old beliefs have been with us for years, built layer by past experiences, by words spoken by people we trusted, by moments we misinterpreted and never questioned. Replacing them takes courage, patience, and the humility to admit that just because we've believed something for a long time doesn't make it true. One of the most powerful shifts we can make is moving from asking, "Or what if I fail?" to asking, "What if I succeed?" Because our minds have rehearsed failure so often that success can feel like a foreign thought. But the moment you start rehearsing success, even in quiet ways, you open yourself to entirely different actions and entirely different outcomes. And this isn't about blind optimism. It's about balanced intentionality. It's about seeing risks clearly, but also seeing possibilities just as clearly. It's about acknowledging fears without letting them dictate your decisions. It's about asking not only what could go wrong, but also what could go right if you trusted yourself fully. When we replace cluttered thoughts with intentional beliefs, we begin to live from choice rather than habit. And choice is the birthplace of freedom. It allows us to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. It allows us to see opportunities even in setbacks. It allows us to remain steady when circumstances around us are anything but steady. And over time, this inner work reflects outward. People may not see the thousands of small mental choices you make each day, but they'll see the results. Greater confidence, clearer direction, and a resilience that seems almost unshakable. They'll see someone who doesn't crumble under criticism because they're anchored in their own beliefs. Someone who doesn't chase every distraction because they know what truly matters. Someone whose presence feels calm yet powerful because their mind is aligned with their purpose. The most beautiful part is that as we change our beliefs, we change not only ourselves, but also the impact we have on others. By choosing to replace negativity with intention, we become living proof to those around us that transformation is possible. Our courage becomes contagious. Our clarity becomes a light that helps others find their own path. And yes, it takes daily effort. It takes noticing each time an old thought tries to sneak back in and choosing, gently but firmly, to return to the new belief. Some days it feels easy, almost natural. Other days it feels like the hardest thing in the world. But each time we choose, we strengthen a new mental pathway, until eventually the new beliefs become the mind's default instead of the old ones. The journey doesn't end when we build new beliefs, it deepens. Because with each new level of growth, new doubts may appear. But by then, we've learned something invaluable. We don't have to believe every thought we think. We can question, challenge, and replace. We can choose thoughts that build us rather than break us. And this choice, to replace cluttered thoughts with intentional beliefs, isn't something we do once. It's something we do every morning when we wake up, every night before we sleep, and countless times in between. It becomes a quiet discipline, an act of self-respect, and ultimately, an act of self-liberation. Because the life you create starts with the mind you shape. And by choosing your beliefs with intention, you become the true author of your own story. You stop living as a character written by past experiences or outside expectations and start living as the creator of your own destiny. And that, more than anything, is what transforms possibility into reality. Not just dreaming, but believing deeply enough to act, persist, and become. So let's begin. Here's a deeply expanded, natural, seamless 8,000-word style segment for key point 3. Discipline your mind like a muscle. Crafted to keep the same motivational, authentic, conversational flow, aligned with the earlier points. And written as if the speaker is delivering it naturally to an audience, concluding with only the closing line for impact and without mentioning Ivanka Trump's name. We've talked about clearing the noise. We've talked about choosing what to believe, intentionally replacing old thoughts with ones that truly serve us. And now we come to something that ties all of this together, something that turns fleeting inspiration into something unshakable. The discipline to keep your mind strong, steady, and clear every single day. Because the truth is, a clear and intentional mind isn't built by accident. It isn't something that just happens when life is calm or when circumstances are perfect. It's something we create moment by moment through deliberate practice, just like training a muscle. And just like any muscle, the mind grows stronger the more consistently we work it, and it weakens when we stop. And many people think mental strength is something you either have or don't have, a gift you're born with, or a permanent trait. But the real power comes from understanding that it's a skill, not a fixed trait. It's something we can build, protect, and reinforce every single day, no matter where we start from. And that realization changes everything. Think about how we train our physical bodies. If someone wants to become stronger, they don't go to the gym once, lift the heaviest weight, and declare themselves finished. No, they show up over and over, sometimes with big progress, sometimes with small, sometimes simply to keep the habit alive. They train on the days they feel energized and they train. Often more importantly, on the days when they feel tired, unmotivated, or discouraged, because they understand that consistency, not occasional bursts of effort, is what transforms potential into real, lasting strength. Your mind is exactly the same. The moments you feel inspired and motivated are wonderful. They give you momentum. But real transformation comes from what you do, when the motivation fades, when doubt shows up, when life becomes messy and complicated. It comes from choosing, in those ordinary moments, to keep training your mind. To clear it, to challenge unhelpful thoughts, to replace them with better ones, and to act in alignment with the beliefs you've chosen. There's a quiet power in that daily discipline. It doesn't always feel dramatic. Often it feels so subtle you might doubt it's working at all. But over time, you start to notice. Your reactions become slower, more thoughtful. The criticism that once shook you now barely stirs you. The fear that once kept you frozen now feels like something you can breathe through and move past. And these small shifts, repeated over and over, add up to something extraordinary. Training your mind also means becoming aware of the moments it drifts away from clarity and focus. Not to judge yourself, but to gently bring it back. When your thoughts spiral into worry or self-criticism, when you catch yourself rehearsing old fears instead of practicing new beliefs, that awareness is the most important moment. Because in that moment, you have a choice. You can keep spiraling, or you can stop, take a breath, and return your mind to where you want it to be. At first, this choice might feel hard. The pull of old habits is strong, but just like any training, repetition builds strength. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. And slowly, you'll notice that the old patterns lose their grip. Your mind starts to default, not to chaos, but to calm. Not to fear, but to purpose. This isn't about forcing the mind into rigid control. True discipline isn't rigid, it's flexible. It's not about pretending bad things don't happen or denying difficult feelings. It's about noticing them, honoring them, and still choosing to return to clarity and action. It's about understanding that while we can't control every thought that pops into our heads, we can control which thoughts we focus on, which ones we feed, and which ones we let fade away. And it's also about what we feed our minds daily. Just like what we eat affects our physical strength, what we read, watch, listen to, and surround ourselves with affects our mental strength. If we constantly consume negativity, drama, and doubt, it's no surprise our minds become restless and fearful. But when we choose content that inspires us, challenges us to grow, and aligns with our chosen beliefs, we're fueling our minds with what helps them stay clear and strong. This daily discipline can look different for each of us. For some, it might be starting the morning with a few minutes of meditation, journaling, or quiet reflection. For others, it could be setting reminders to pause during the day and check in with their thoughts. And it might be ending the day by reviewing what went well, what could be improved, and reaffirming the beliefs they want to live by. The form doesn't matter nearly as much as the consistency. And yes, there will be days when discipline feels like a struggle. Days when your mind feels scattered no matter what you do. On those days, it's easy to feel like you're failing. But that too is part of the training, learning to show yourself patience and compassion. Strength isn't built by perfection. It's built by persistence, by showing up again the next day, and the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. Another part of disciplining the mind is learning to stay focused on what we can control and letting go of what we can't. So much mental noise comes from worrying about things outside our influence. Other people's opinions, outcomes we can't guarantee, events we can't predict. Training the mind means gently reminding ourselves, this is beyond my control, so I choose to return my focus to what is within my control, my thoughts, my actions, my effort. And this isn't a one-time realization. It's something we remind ourselves of daily, sometimes hourly. Because the mind loves to wander. Discipline isn't stopping the mind from wandering. It's noticing when it does and gently guiding it back, again and again. Over time, this becomes a habit so natural that it feels almost automatic. When you build this mental discipline, something beautiful happens. Your confidence grows, not because everything around you is certain, but because you trust yourself to stay steady even when it isn't. You stop needing the world to be perfect to feel strong because your strength comes from within, from your own practiced, disciplined mind. This strength radiates outward. People around you notice it, often without even knowing why. They see someone who stays calm in crisis, who doesn't react to every provocation, who can listen thoughtfully and speak with intention. This quiet steadiness becomes part of who you are, and it opens doors, builds trust, and deepens your impact. Disciplining your mind also means learning to choose long-term gain over short-term comfort. It's easy to react impulsively, to say what's easiest, to avoid what's uncomfortable. But strength comes from pausing, thinking, and choosing the response that aligns with your deeper values and vision, even when it's harder in the moment. Over time, this practice shapes your entire life. Your relationships become stronger because you listen more and react less. Your work becomes more focused because you spend less time doubting and more time doing. Your goals become clearer because your mind isn't clouded by every passing fear or distraction. And through it all, you'll discover that discipline isn't a burden. It's a form of freedom. It frees you from being ruled by every passing mood, every criticism, every setback. It gives you the power to decide moment by moment who you want to be and how you want to show up. This doesn't mean you'll never feel fear, doubt, or anger. Those are human. But discipline means you don't let those feelings drive your decisions. You feel them, acknowledge them, and then choose your response consciously, rather than automatically. As your mind becomes stronger, your vision becomes clearer. You start to see possibilities where you once saw only obstacles. You notice small opportunities and act on them before doubt has a chance to speak. You begin to trust your own judgment because it's been sharpened and strengthened by daily practice. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to live in alignment, your thoughts, beliefs, and actions all pointing in the same direction. That alignment creates momentum. Each small, disciplined choice builds on the last, until what once felt impossible now feels inevitable. None of this happens overnight. It's built slowly, quietly, often without anyone else noticing at first. But eventually, the results become visible, not just in what you achieve, but in how you carry yourself, how you handle challenges, and how deeply you believe in your own capacity to create change. The beauty is that this discipline isn't limited to a chosen few. It's available to anyone willing to practice. No matter where you start, you can become someone whose mind is not easily shaken. Someone whose clarity isn't dependent on perfect circumstances. Someone who can pause, reflect, and act intentionally, even under pressure. And in that space where discipline meets clarity and intention, true transformation happens. You become not just a thinker of positive thoughts, but a doer of meaningful actions. Your dreams stop being distant hopes and start becoming daily practices. So keep training your mind as you would train your body. Patiently, consistently, and with compassion for the days it feels harder. Remember that every time you bring your mind back to focus, every time you choose your beliefs consciously, every time you act in alignment with them, you're building real, lasting strength. And over time, that strength becomes unshakable. Because it wasn't given to you by chance, it was built day by your own discipline. So let's begin. Here's an 8,000-word style segment, written in a naturally extended, seamless, conversational tone as if it's part of the same speech, expanding key point 4. Act from a calm mind to create unstoppable momentum, carefully aligned with the earlier points, and ending with a simple, impactful closing line, without mentioning Ivanka Trump's name. We've talked about clearing the noise, about choosing what to believe, and about the discipline to keep your mind strong every single day. Now comes the part where all of this inner work reveals its true purpose. Because a clear, disciplined, intentional mind isn't something we cultivate just to sit with our thoughts. It's something we build so we can act. And not just act for the sake of acting, but to act from a place of calm, grounded clarity that creates a momentum nothing outside of us can stop. There's something deeply powerful that happens when action comes from calm rather than chaos. Too often, we rush to do something because we feel pressure from the world, because fear pushes us forward, or because comparison tells us we're falling behind. Sometimes, yes, that urgency can produce short-term results, but it rarely builds something sustainable. Because action driven by panic, insecurity, or desperation tends to scatter our energy. We jump from idea to idea, trying to force outcomes rather than letting them grow naturally. And when setbacks come, and they always do, panic-driven effort crumbles under the weight of disappointment. But when our actions come from a calm, centered place, the results feel, and truly are, Different. Instead of chasing everything, we become selective and deliberate. Instead of trying to do everything all at once, we focus on what truly matters, on what aligns with our vision and values. And this focused, intentional action, repeated day after day, becomes momentum that doesn't fade just because the mood changes or because one plan fails. Calm doesn't mean we do less. It means we do the right things in the right way for the right reasons. And that difference changes everything. Think of the difference between water poured out in all directions, spreading thin and evaporating quickly versus water channeled into a single current, cutting through rock and creating rivers that last for centuries. The same energy, but focused and calm, becomes unstoppable. Acting from calm also keeps us open to new ideas and opportunities. When the mind is panicked, it closes in. It sees threats everywhere. It rushes past details. It misses quiet signals. But a calm mind notices more. It sees patterns others miss. It hears the hesitation in a conversation that might reveal a problem before it becomes a crisis. And it senses when to pivot rather than pushing harder in the wrong direction. This doesn't mean there's no urgency in our actions. It means the urgency is rooted in purpose, not in fear. It's the difference between running because you're chased and running because you're determined to cross the finish line. Both are fast, but only one feels empowered, and only one creates lasting growth. When you act from calm, failures become lessons rather than verdicts. You can look at what happened, see clearly what to keep and what to change, without the shame and self-blame that cloud judgment. And that clarity lets you adjust and keep going, rather than quitting or doubling down on the wrong strategy just to prove yourself right. It's not always easy to stay calm, especially when the stakes are high, or when others around us are panicking. But this is where all the earlier work matters. Clearing the noise, choosing intentional beliefs, and training your mind daily builds the foundation that allows calm to become your natural state, rather than something you have to force. And even if you lose that calm for a moment, and we all do, you can return to it more quickly each time. You'll find yourself pausing before you react, taking a breath, remembering what you truly value, and then acting from that space. That brief pause is sometimes all it takes to turn a reactive choice into a thoughtful, powerful step forward. Acting from calm also changes how people experience us. It creates trust. Others sense when our confidence is real rather than performative. They feel when we're grounded in something deeper than momentary hype or fear of missing out. And that steady presence often inspires others to find their own calm, creating a ripple effect that goes far beyond what we do alone. This steady momentum doesn't just move us forward. It sustains us through the times when results come slowly. Because from calm, we understand that meaningful progress rarely comes overnight. We can keep going because our actions are tied to a purpose, not to the need for immediate validation. Purpose-driven calm doesn't mean we become passive. It means we become persistent. We stop burning out from frantic, unfocused effort and start building endurance through aligned, consistent action. Over months and years, that endurance becomes something extraordinary. The ability to keep moving forward long after others give up, and the world notices. Because while anyone can act when everything is going right, few can keep moving, keep creating, and keep believing when things get hard. Calm makes that possible, not because it eliminates fear or difficulty, but because it keeps them from dictating our choices. Calm also makes us braver. It sounds paradoxical, but when your mind is steady, you're more willing to take calculated risks. Panic often makes us cling to safety, afraid of losing what little control we feel we have. But calm gives us perspective. It shows us the upside as well as the downside. It reminds us why the risk is worth it, and it helps us prepare thoughtfully, rather than jumping blindly. Think of the leaders, creators, and visionaries who inspire us most. It isn't just their talent or intelligence, it's the sense of calm conviction in their actions, even under pressure. That calm didn't happen by accident. It was built over years, often through setbacks and doubts, by choosing again and again to act from clarity rather than fear. And that same possibility exists for every one of us. It doesn't matter where we start. Calm is something we can cultivate, protect, and return to moment by moment, day by day. And each time we do, we strengthen not just our actions, but our character. Over time, the momentum created by calm becomes exponential. Early on, progress feels slow because so much energy is spent overcoming old habits and doubts. But as calm becomes more natural, as your mind stops resisting itself, Your actions start to build on each other rather than canceling each other out. Efforts that once felt separate begin to align, creating results bigger than the sum of their parts. And yes, this momentum means you'll still face obstacles. But instead of seeing them as walls, you see them as part of the path. You adjust, pivot, or push through as needed, without losing sight of your deeper goal. That adaptability born of calm often becomes the difference between temporary setbacks and permanent failure. In the end, acting from calm isn't about never feeling fear or doubt. It's about not letting those feelings choose for us. It's about knowing what we value, what we believe, and what we want to create, and letting those truths guide our next step, and the one after that. And as we keep stepping forward from that space, something almost magical happens. Our calm, disciplined, intentional actions begin to attract people, opportunities, and resources aligned with our vision. Not because we force them, but because like energy draws like energy. And our momentum grows, not through frantic effort, but through steady, aligned persistence. That's why the real power isn't just in the action itself, but in the place the action comes from. A calm mind makes us wise enough to see clearly, brave enough to act boldly, and resilient enough to keep going until results follow. Because ultimately, it isn't the speed or size of our steps that creates lasting success. It's the clarity, intention, and calm persistence behind each one. So let's begin.